Park these two motorcycles outside the same roadside diner, and most people will reach for the key to the new one. It has the bright screen, the phone connection, the riding modes, the radar, and a payment that will follow you home for the next 5 years. The old bike beside it has an analog speedometer, a few scratches on the luggage, and a previous owner who probably kept every gas receipt in a Ziploc bag. But after 600 miles, the interesting question is not which motorcycle looked newer in the parking lot. It is which rider still wants to keep going. New motorcycles are safer, cleaner, and in many ways genuinely better. This is not an argument against progress. It is an argument about how little some of the important parts of touring have progressed, and how well a few older machines understood the job before motorcycles needed software menus to explain themselves. These three are not museum pieces. They are still usable, still desirable, and just flawed enough to be interesting. One can roast your leg in traffic. One weighs about as much as a small moon. And number one arrived more than 20 years ago with a feature list that could still sell a motorcycle today. Number 3, the Triumph Sprint ST1050. The Sprint comes from a nearly extinct species, the normal height sport tourer. Not a superbike with soft luggage tied to the tail. Not a tall adventure bike that will spend its entire life avoiding dirt. A fast road motorcycle designed for somebody who wanted to ride 300 miles, find a good piece of mountain road, and enjoy the next 50. In 2005, Triumph gave it a 1050cc three-cylinder engine, producing a claimed 123 horsepower and about 77 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are still healthy. But the reason people remember the engine is not the number. It is the way the power arrives. A 4-cylinder engine often asks for revs. A big twin gives you the punch and then starts running out of breath. The Sprint's triple lives in the space between them. It pulls hard in the middle, keeps pulling at the top, and makes a mechanical howl that no riding mode can add later. It also weighs far less than the giant touring rigs people usually imagine when they hear the word comfortable. The riding position leans towards sport, but it is not a punishment device. The windscreen puts clean air on your chest. The chassis feels natural in a corner, and factory hard luggage turns it into a real trip motorcycle without making it look like airport ground equipment. That sounds obvious now. It was not. Triumph's own goal was to make something more aggressive without throwing away the grand touring part. The result could spend the morning eating interstate and the afternoon embarrassing riders who assumed the saddlebags meant the fun was over. And then there was the styling, the single-sided swing arm, the 3 exhaust outlets tucked under the seat, the slim tail. Even today, a clean Sprint does not look 20 years old. It looks like a motorcycle company had one clear idea and was allowed to finish it. Now for the part, the classified ad will not tell you. Those underseat exhausts can send serious heat toward the rider and passenger. Early bikes deserve a careful look at the charging system. The rear hub needs proper maintenance, and a 20-year-old shock is still a 20-year-old shock, no matter how shiny the paint is. This is not a Honda appliance. Buy the neglected example because it is cheap and it can become expensive very quickly. But buy the right one, and the Sprint exposes something awkward about many new motorcycles. They may have more power, better electronics, and longer accessory lists, yet somehow less identity. The old Triumph does not need 7 personalities. It has one, and it is a good one. If the Sprint embarrasses new bikes by still feeling alive, number 2 does it in the least glamorous way possible. It makes a long day feel short. Number 2, the Honda Gold Wing GL1500. Let's address the obvious problem. It is enormous. A GL1500 parked on its side stand looks less like a motorcycle and more like a 2-wheeled condominium. Depending on the version, it is somewhere around 800 pounds before you add a rider, passenger, luggage, rain gear, snacks, and the small collection of objects that somehow migrates into every Gold Wing trunk. Push one backward on a sloping driveway and you will understand why Honda gave it reverse. But the weight is also the setup to the joke, because the first time the bike starts moving, much of it seems to disappear. The 1520cc flat 6 sits low in the frame. The power delivery is quiet, smooth, and almost strangely calm. It does not feel as if 6 cylinders are trying to impress you. It feels as if they are trying not to disturb the passenger. That was intentional. During development, Honda's first 6-cylinder prototype responded too sharply for the luxury motorcycle the engineers wanted. Think about that. They built a new flat 6, decided it had too much attitude, and worked to make it more civilized. The final engine was not designed to win a bar stool horsepower argument. It was designed to make an interstate shrink. Honda built the GL1500 in Ohio, aimed it primarily at American riders, and kept it in production for 13 years without a fundamental redesign. Motorcycle companies do not leave a bad idea alone for 13 years. They leave a finished one alone. The real luxury is not the old radio or the buttons scattered across the fairing. It is the still air behind the windshield. It is the passenger seat that does not become a subject of negotiation after lunch. It is the shaft drive, the luggage, the low-speed balance once you understand the bike, and the flat 6 turning mile after mile into background noise. Modern touring motorcycles have better brakes, better suspension, and far better electronics. No argument there. But a radar warning does not fix a cramped knee, and a beautiful display does not stop a passenger from asking how much farther. The GL1500 was designed around fatigue, the boring enemy that actually ends long rides, and it remains disturbingly good at defeating it. There is a catch, and it is a large one. At this age, condition matters more than the number on the odometer. Timing belts, cooling hoses, brake lines, old tires, stale fuel, dirty carburetors, and years of improvised wiring can turn a cheap Gold Wing into a restoration project wearing a travel trunk. A well-kept high-mile bike can be the smarter buy than a low-mile example that spent 15 years sleeping under a tarp. And no, it will not turn into a lightweight canyon weapon because somebody fitted modern tires. Physics still works. But if the job is to carry 2 people and their luggage across several states without making either of them hate the idea, an honest GL1500 can make a frighteningly expensive new motorcycle look like a very complicated answer to a problem Honda solved in 1988. Which brings us to number 1. The bike that did not merely survive the modern era. In several important ways, it predicted it. Number 1. The first generation Yamaha FJR1300. When the FJR reached America as a 2003 model, it came with a 1,298cc fuel-injected inline-4, an aluminum frame, shaft drive, a 6-gallon fuel tank, removable hard luggage, a center stand, adjustable suspension, and an electrically adjustable windshield. That last feature still gets advertised as premium equipment. Yamaha was putting it on a motorcycle while most people were using flip phones. The factory claimed 143, 5 metric horsepower. A contemporary American road test measured more than 124 horsepower and 90 pound-feet at the rear wheel. The same test recorded 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, with the bags fitted and enough comfort to ride through several fuel stops. That combination is the important part. Plenty of old motorcycles are fast for their age. The FJR is fast while carrying a passenger, rain gear, and whatever you bought at the gift shop even though you said there was no room. The engine does not need drama. Roll on the throttle in top gear, and the bike simply gathers speed with that heavy, smooth shove big Yamaha 4s do so well. Remove the bags and find a twisting road, and it feels much smaller than the fuel capacity and shaft drive suggest. Put the bags back on, raise the windshield, and it is ready to cross another state. It even made maintenance sound like a touring feature. The original U.S. Model specified valve clearance checks at 26,000 miles. The rear suspension had a simple lever to switch preload for a passenger or luggage. No phone, no app, no scrolling through a suspension menu at a gas station with gloves on. Just reach down, move the lever, and leave. The first FJR was not perfect. The 2003 American model had no ABS, that arrived as an option for 2004. Cruise control and traction control came much later. Owners complained about engine, heat, and wind buffeting, and many fixed the airflow with a taller screen. It also has 5 gears, which will deeply upset riders who believe every modern engine requires 6. But those flaws almost make the larger point. Strip away the rider aids, and the foundation is already there. Serious power, long range, weather protection, luggage, comfort, stable handling, and a drivetrain built to cover miles instead of collecting attention outside a coffee shop. A new motorcycle will beat it in a braking test. It will produce fewer emissions. It may adjust its suspension while reading traffic ahead. All useful progress. Then the road opens. The FJR's windshield rises. That 1,298cc engine wakes up, and the owner of the old Yamaha remembers that the entire point of a touring motorcycle is not to have the newest answer. It is to make a distant place feel close. That is how these motorcycles embarrass new bikes. Not by winning every test, and not by pretending age is free. Old rubber, old fluids, old wiring, and old owner decisions can erase the purchase price advantage in a weekend. Every one of these bikes deserves a careful inspection and a maintenance budget. But when a Sprint turns a luggage run into a backroad chase, when a GL1500 delivers 2 people after sunset without an argument, or when an early FJR disappears toward the next state with 20 years of depreciation behind it, the comparison gets uncomfortable. Maybe the old bikes are not embarrassing the new ones. Maybe they are embarrassing us for confusing more technology with more motorcycle. So which key are you taking? The Sprint, the Gold Wing, or the FJR? And what old touring bike did I leave off this list that can still humble something fresh off the showroom floor?